Welcome. Today we're taking a close look at a piece of public infrastructure that we all encounter, often at the most unexpected times, and which carries just immense emotional weight. The Amber Alert system.
It's something most of us have experienced, that sudden loud alarm on our phones.
Exactly. And we want to move beyond that sound to really explore the history, the intricate mechanics, and the worldwide implementation of this critical safety net. We'll be drawing on a lot of comprehensive sources here, focusing on the core facts and, the debates surrounding it.
Right.
But before we get into the technical and legal structure, we have to acknowledge the heart-wrenching gravity of this topic. This system exists because of the most profound fear a community or a parent can face, the immediate, life-threatening danger to a missing child.
It's absolutely essential to start there. When we look at the Amber Alert system, we're really studying this incredible nexus point.
A nexus point.
Yeah, it's a huge collaboration between government agencies, media outlets, law enforcement, and even private tech partners all over the world. It's a massive effort in real-time crisis communication.
And our goal here is to distill the most important and sometimes surprising insights from all this material to guide you through the full scope of this interconnected emergency network.
And the information we've gathered gives us a remarkably complete perspective. It covers the technical criteria for activation, the international policy shifts that led to its global spread,
And also the critiques.
and perhaps most critically, yes, the scholarly critique of its measurable effectiveness. So today we're going to explore not just how this system works and the children it has saved, but also why its use can generate such intense controversy and how its actual impact is measured against the incredibly high expectations set by its tragic foundation.
Okay, let's unpack this and start exactly where we should. With the foundational event that gave this sister its evocative name, starting in Texas almost 3 decades ago.
Right.
The system owes its name and its very existence to Amber Renee Hagerman. She was just 9 years old, living in Arlington, Texas. It's impossible to discuss this system without first honoring her memory and the devastating circumstances that led to this.
Amber was abducted on a Sunday afternoon, January 13th, 1996. She was just riding her bicycle near her home. The sources, they paint a really chilling picture.
They do. Her younger brother, Ricky, had only gone home for a moment.
Just for a moment. And when he came back with their grandfather, they found only her bicycle abandoned in the parking lot. A neighbor who tragically witnessed the abduction called 911 immediately.
And they gave a description, right, of the man and the truck.
A description of the perpetrator and the pickup truck he used. That rapid eyewitness account was crucial, but sadly, it just wasn't enough to find her in time.
The outcome was just devastating for her family and the entire community. 4 days later, near midnight on January 17th, her body was discovered by a man who was out walking his dog.
And it was found in a creek, less than 5 miles, about 8 kilometers from where she was taken.
The medical reports indicated severe laceration wounds to her neck.
And her murder remains unsolved to this day. This devastating fact, the murder of a child, coupled with that frustrating lack of resolution, it really galvanized her community and propelled this immediate national response.
And that community reaction was instantaneous. It was desperate. Amber's parents, Donna Williams and Richard Hagerman, they immediately reached out to the FBI, to the media, leveraging every channel they could.
And crucially, Donna Williams connected with other grieving families who had, navigated similar nightmares. Most notably, she reached out to Mark Kluss.
That connection is so key for context. Mark Kluss was the father of Polly Kluss, who was murdered back in 1993.
A case that had already generated massive national attention and calls for legislative change. So when Amber's parents reached out, it wasn't just a local tragedy anymore. It immediately became part of this larger national movement demanding concrete action to protect children.
So following this tragedy, the legislative push was relentless.
Within days of Amber's death, her mother, Donna Williams, was already calling for tougher penalties for kidnappers and sex offenders. This drive led to the establishment of an organization called People Against Sex Offenders, or PASO.
And it was a true grassroots effort. Her parents, backed by the community, collected signatures hoping to compel the Texas legislature to pass more stringent protections.
Local businesses even played a role, donating office supplies and internet service to PASO. It turned a community vigil into a serious political machine almost overnight.
This political weight then quickly reached the national level.
It did. Congressman Martin Frost, working very closely with Mark Kluss, who is now this experienced voice of prior national trauma, they drafted the Amber Hagerman Child Protection Act.
And both of Amber's parents were there when President Bill Clinton signed that bill into law.
That act was truly monumental. It did something very specific and very enduring. It established the National Sex Offender Registry.
So while the alert system is the most visible legacy, the legislative changes on offender tracking are just as profound.
Absolutely. But the actual alert system concept, the broadcast mechanism we recognize today, that had a slightly separate, almost spontaneous evolution.
No.
The first specific concept was proposed in July 1996 at a media symposium in Arlington. A man named Bruce Seidlert, whose own daughter was a close friend of Amber's, he spoke at the event. He proposed specific, rapid police actions and detailed exactly how the media could facilitate those efforts to find missing children quickly.
And that's the critical piece of the puzzle, connecting the tragedy to the solution.
Yeah.
A reporter from radio station KRLD, C.J. Wheeler, heard Seibert's vision.
And immediately took those ideas to the Dallas police chief. That collaboration, blending media distribution with law enforcement urgency, that's what launched the first ever Amber Alert. It started purely as a localized, volunteer, practical collaboration.
But it was pretty basic at first.
Oh, for the first couple of years, the alerts were rudimentary. They were manually broadcast to participating radio stations, following a proposal from Diana Simone, another Texas resident who initially contacted a radio station suggesting broadcast to engage the public.
So we start with manual alerts, which rely so heavily on human speed and accuracy. But that changed pretty dramatically, right?
Absolutely. The critical turning point was in 1998 when the Child Alert Foundation created the first fully automated alert notification system, or ANS. This was a massive technological leap.
How so?
Instead of relying on manual calls, the system exponentially increased the speed and the reach by broadcasting simultaneously via pagers, faxes, emails, and cell phones while instantly posting the information online. This automation is really what allowed the system to scale nationally.
And speaking of scaling, we need to address the role of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC. The sources say they actually declined to be involved in the program back in 1996.
That's a critical historical nuance. Initially, NCMEC was cautious. They were concerned that if the criteria weren't strict enough, the system would be misused, and that would lead to public desensitization.
The crying wolf effect.
Exactly. They wanted to ensure the integrity of the process. But as the localized Texas program demonstrated success and gained immense public momentum, NCMEC recognized its potential.
So they came on board.
They launched a national campaign in 2001 to promote the alert and then formally expanded their role in 2002 to advocate for it nationwide. Their eventual partnership was absolutely essential for the federal standardization of the system.
And finally, a fact that always surprises people: the linguistic twist. Although it's named in honor of Amber Hagerman, the proponents realized they needed a marketable, standardized name for national adoption.
Right, and the backronym AMBER officially stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response. It's a powerful testament to how a child's name became an organized, nationwide call to action.
Let's transition now to the core functionality. This is where we get into the strict framework that governs when and how these urgent messages are deployed. This is so crucial because, as you mentioned, overuse carries that significant risk of eroding public trust.
The importance of rigid criteria just cannot be overstated. If alerts were sent constantly for every missing child incident, including, runaways or simple family misunderstandings, the public would quickly experience alert fatigue.
Or that wolf cry effect you mentioned.
Exactly. The U.S. Department of Justice guidance is designed specifically to ensure the alerts are reserved for only the most urgent situations, maximizing the chance the public will actually take action.
So what are those 4 pillars of the DOJ guidance that most states follow?
Okay, so first, law enforcement must confirm that an abduction has actually taken place.
Confirmation is key.
It is. Second, the child must be at risk of serious injury or death. This is the core indicator of urgency. Third, there has to be sufficient descriptive information of the child, the captor, or the vehicle to issue an alert that's actionable for the public. If you just say a child is missing, well, the public can't help.
Right, you need details.
And the fourth.
And finally, the child must be under 18 years of age.
That second criterion, the risk of serious injury or death, that seems to be where the real-world application often butts up against the strict rulebook.
That's a key tension point. When law enforcement deviates, it's often in cases of parental abductions custody disputes, where one parent takes the child against a court order.
Which is legally an abduction.
It is, but immediate serious risk may not be confirmed or assumed. Yet, departments often issue the alert anyway, partly due to public and political pressure to be seen as taking action in any kidnapping case, regardless of the severity of the threat.
And we even see political deviations built directly into the law, which is fascinating. Like West Virginia's Schuyler's Law, passed in 2013.
Exactly. That legislation specifically eliminated criterion number 1, the confirmed abduction, as a requirement for triggering an alert. So it's a lower bar to clear.
It reflects a political decision to prioritize speed over certainty. Law enforcement is allowed to issue the alert based on reasonable suspicion rather than confirmed proof. I mean, if you know that 75% of children abducted by strangers are killed within 3 hours, waiting for confirmation might mean waiting too long.
It's a constant negotiation between procedure and urgency.
Always.
But regardless of any local deviations, the administrative requirement is foundational. The data must immediately be entered into the FBI National Crime Information Center, or NCIC. Why is entry into a federal system like that so vital for a local alert?
The NCIC entry is the backbone of the whole system. It ensures that the case is flagged federally as a child abduction, and detailed information describing the circumstances must be entered.
And that standardization helps everyone.
It's critical because it standardizes the information across all jurisdictions and makes it immediately accessible to any police officer, border agent, or federal investigator who runs a name or a license plate, no matter where the alert originated. It's the centralized database that transforms a local report into a national priority.
So once the criteria are met and the NCIC data is entered, the distribution network is just massive. This is where the alert transforms into a unified national shout.
The U.S. network is deliberately vast and multi-layered. It leverages both old and new emergency infrastructure. The alerts are distributed via commercial and public radio, internet radio, satellite radio, TV, cable, all through the established emergency alert system, the EAS.
The same one we hear for weather warnings.
Exactly. They're also issued over NOAA weather radio.
And the reach extends physically into the landscape, too. We see alerts on email, on electronic traffic signs, and even on commercial billboards owned by companies like Lamar or Walgreens.
In some states, the scroll boards on lottery terminals are used too. It basically turns public space into a massive search bulletin.
The integration with tech platforms is particularly effective, leveraging that geotargeting.
It is. The U.S. Justice Department has teamed up with tech giants like Google and Meta to display alerts when geographically relevant searches are entered into major platforms. So if you're searching for directions or local news in an affected area, the alert information might suddenly pop up, providing real-time, localized context.
But for most people today, the most pervasive method is through their mobile device via the Wireless Emergency Alerts, or WEA program. Can you clarify the distinction between a standard SMS text alert and a WEA alert for our listeners?
That's a crucial distinction, and it's at the heart of the controversies we'll discuss later. As of January 1st, 2013, Amber alerts are automatically sent through the WEA program.
And WEA is different from a text message.
Very different. WEA uses cell broadcast technology, which pushes a message to all active mobile devices within a specific geographic area served by specific cell towers. It's highly efficient for geotargeting. These are mandatory system notifications.
Whereas the old SMS system was opt-in.
Right. Standard SMS text messages used previously were often opt-in. You had to subscribe. By using WEA, the alerts became automatic and mandatory for compatible phones, ensuring the widest possible immediate reach, and they're required by law to be offered free of charge.
And the content itself is highly standardized.
Absolutely. The goal is actionable information. Alerts typically include the name and description of the abductee, a description of the suspected abductor, and if known, a vehicle description and license plate number. This detail is what allows the public to go from being a passive receiver to an active participant, the additional eyes and ears of law enforcement.
Now, if we expand our view internationally, how does this process relate to cross-border cooperation, and what happens to cases that fall just outside those strict Amber criteria?
Well, for international standards, we see a lot of uniformity. For example, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, uses requirements that are nearly identical to the U.S. DOJ guidance. And this standardization is absolutely critical for seamless cross-border cooperation.
So if a child is taken near the border,
when investigators suspect the child is in danger of being taken across the border into Canada or Mexico-U.S., Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and the Canada Border Services Agency are all instantly notified. They'll search every car coming through a checkpoint, turning the borders into an immediate, high-alert search perimeter.
But what about those cases that don't quite meet the threshold, but still involve a child in danger? That seems like a huge gap if there isn't a secondary response mechanism.
It is a massive gap, and the DOJ recognized it. For incidents that do not meet the strict AMBER criteria, they developed the Complementary Child Abduction Response Teams, or CART.
So this isn't a public alert.
No, this is a highly trained task force designed to assist local agencies in all missing children's cases, including runaways under 18 who are considered to be in danger. As of 2010, 225 CART teams had been trained globally, showing that law enforcement acknowledges the need for intensive response tools for every level of missing persons, not just the highest profile stranger abductions.
The pace of adoption for the main alert system was just incredible. It moved so quickly beyond Texas and the U.S. Let's look at how nations worldwide adopted this model and what unique names, rules, or controversies they encountered.
The initial success in Texas created enormous political pressure for national standards. In October of 2000, the U.S. House of Representatives adopted a resolution encouraging communities nationwide to implement the AMBER plan.
And the FCC officially endorsed the system in 2002. By 2005, all 50 states had fully operational programs. This legislative push was vital because it created a unified operational framework, making it possible for an alert issued in New York to be understood and acted upon instantly in California.
But before the AMBER Alert name became the universal brand, many regions had their own localized, deeply personal names. And this really showcases how the initiative was always driven by specific, localized community loss.
And those localized names are so powerful. In Georgia, the alert was known as Levi's Call, in memory of Levi Frady.
In Hawaii, they had the Male Amber Alert for Male Gilbert.
Arkansas used the Morgan Nick Amber Alert, honoring Morgan Nick. In Utah, they had the Rachel Alert for Rachel Runyon.
And in Idaho, they referred to their program as Monkey's Law, in memory of Michael Monkey Joseph Vaughn. Those names provided immediate community context and memorialization, a sharp contrast to the generic national acronym. It allowed people to connect the functional response system back to the human tragedy that fueled it.
Canada was a fast adopter, starting in Alberta in December 2002. The speed of their expansion showed the seriousness with which they viewed this concept.
They certainly did. The Alberta government committed over $1 million Canadian to expand the province's emergency warning infrastructure specifically for these alerts. They initially estimated needing to issue an alert only about once a year, showing they anticipated keeping the criteria extremely strict.
When Quebec introduced the program in 2003, they adopted this system but localized the name in French, just like the U.S. created the acronym.
That's right. In Quebec, AMBER stands for Alert Médiatique, but Enfant Recherché, which translates roughly to Media Alert Goal of Child Recovery.
Quebec also implemented some of the most specific broadcast requirements we see globally.
Very specific. The information is broadcast every 20 minutes for 2 full hours on the radio. On television, the information runs on a continuous ticker tape at the bottom of the screen for 2 hours without interruption. This repetitive, highly intrusive method ensures maximum visibility.
And their use of private sector technology for rapid distribution is impressive.
It is. Ontario utilizes 9,000 lottery terminal screens. Loto-Quebec in Quebec uses 8,500 terminals. That's one of the largest immediate notification networks in Canada, capable of distributing information in under 10 minutes. TransLink in British Columbia also displays alerts on the digital signs of all their buses.
But the most profound change in Canadian policy followed the tragic abduction and murder of Victoria Stafford.
Right. Before her case, the criteria required confirmation of abduction and confirmation of a threat of harm. Because those strict criteria were not met immediately in her case, an alert was not issued.
And this is where that political pressure created a key fluid moment in criteria enforcement.
Precisely. The sources detail that the public outcry was massive. An online petition gathered over 61,000 signatures demanding a review. The sheer volume of this public demand forced the Ontario Provincial Police to act.
So they changed the rules.
They did. They subsequently changed their rules to only require that they believe that a child has been abducted and believe they are at risk of harm. This policy change moves the trigger mechanism from concrete proof to reasonable suspicion, prioritizing speed over investigative certainty. It was the direct response to public outrage.
And that political and social pressure leads us directly to the high-profile controversy surrounding Alert Ready in Canada. Alerts are distributed through this national system, disrupting all radio and TV.
But the core issue is the delivery method on mobile devices. Since 2018, these alerts are broadcast to supported mobile devices, and the key frustration is that there's currently no way to deactivate Amber Alerts on your phone in Canada.
Even if your phone is on silent.
Even if the device is set to silent or do not disturb, the alarm will blare, potentially at 4 a.m.
And that non-deactivatable intrusive feature, especially for wide-ranging or overnight alerts, has led to exactly the kind of public frustration we worried about. Residents complain, often by calling 911 to complain about the alert itself.
And that misuse is deeply concerning. The fear is genuine. Hearing repeated, intrusive alarms for incidents that don't directly affect them may lead Canadians to become desensitized and potentially ignore the system when it's used for a different type of life-threatening emergency, like a toxic spill or a natural disaster. It threatens the integrity of the entire national emergency communication structure.
The model has proven incredibly attractive internationally. Mexico officially launched its Amber Alert network on April 28, 2011, establishing a key link in North American cooperation.
And Europe has seen broad adoption as well. France was one of the earliest, launching its system in February 2006, named Alert Enlèvement, or abduction alert.
The Netherlands launched their system in 2008, and their first alert in 2009 provides a fantastic anecdote that shows the system's potential efficiency.
It does. A 4-year-old boy went missing in Rotterdam. He was found safe after a person recognized his picture on an electronic billboard in a fast food restaurant.
And he was found so quickly.
So quickly that the transmission of the alert was actually halted before all recipients even received it. This shows that when the system works optimally, turning the public into instant observers, it can be faster than the technology itself.
The UK launched the nationwide Child Rescue Alert in May 2010, which is directly based on the Amber Alert system.
It was first used there in October 2012 in the tragic case of the missing 5-year-old April Jones in Wales. Ireland followed soon after, launching the Child Rescue Ireland Alert in May 2012.
The system has even spread rapidly into Eastern Europe.
Yes, Serbia launched its system called Pronađi me, or Find Me, in October 2023, activating it for the first time in March 2024. Ukraine also launched its system in September 2021 with a critical partnership with Meta.
And Asia and Oceania have embraced this framework, often leveraging technology partnerships to overcome vast distances.
Queensland, Australia, implemented a version back in 2005, and the rest of the Australian states joined Facebook's program in 2017. New Zealand followed, launching its version in 2017, targeting the news feeds of Facebook users in the specific area where the individual went missing.
The scale in China is unique, given the population size and government structure.
Absolutely. The Ministry of Public Security launched their platform in 2016 with technical support from the Alibaba Group. The model there relies heavily on that tech capability, pushing information to mobile phones of people around the disappearance site, mobilizing local residents almost instantly.
And we see those specific localized names continuing internationally. Malaysia implemented the Nuran Alert, named for Nuran Jaslin.
Ecuador introduced the Emilia Alert, named after Emilia Benavides, and Morocco developed Tifli Muktafi, or My Child is Missing, in 2023 in cooperation with Meta, distributing alerts via SMS and Meta platforms.
So now we transition to the analytical core of our source material. We have this massive, globally adopted system. The question is, how effective is it in the real world, and what happens when the data challenges public perception?
To understand the system's design philosophy, you have to start with the stark statistics cited by the U.S. Department of Justice. 75% of children abducted and murdered by strangers are killed within the first 3 hours of their abduction.
The 3-hour window.
That is the race. The entire alert system is designed to beat that timeline by instantaneously mobilizing the public.
And the official success rate, as tracked by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, is significant. As of August 2013, they reported 656 children recovered specifically because the program was activated.
However, when researchers analyze which cases trigger the alerts, a pattern emerges that fundamentally complicates the picture of effectiveness, particularly regarding stranger abductions, the exact crime the system was intended to stop.
Let's discuss the critical 2004 Scripps Howard study. It reviewed 233 alerts issued in the U.S. that year. What did they find regarding adherence to the DOJ's strict criteria?
They found that the majority did not meet the Department of Justice's strict requirements. The breakdown is startling. 50%, or 117 of the alerts, were categorized as family abductions.
Custody disputes.
Often, yes, where the child was already known to be with a parent or relative. Even more surprisingly, 48 alerts were issued when the child was not abducted at all.
What happened in those cases?
They were lost, there were runaways, it was a result of a family misunderstanding, or, in a few cases, a hoax.
So if we look at the core intention alerts for high-risk stranger abductions, what was the percentage?
The study concluded that only 70 of the 233 alerts, so about 30%, were for children taken by strangers or unlawfully traveling with non-guardians. The implication here is profound. The vast majority of resources and public attention are being used for cases that do not match the system's foundational high-risk criteria.
And this data set introduces the critical, sometimes controversial viewpoint of scholars who challenge the system's effectiveness, specifically in those most dangerous cases.
This brings us to criminologist Timothy Griffin and his co-author, Monica Miller. They conducted extensive research, reviewing hundreds of cases between 2003 and 2006. Their findings suggested that Amber Alerts had little apparent role in the return of abducted children in the most serious cases.
The ones involving non-family perpetrators with malicious intent.
Exactly. They found that the alerts tended to succeed primarily in what they termed mundane abductions, meaning those involving non-custodial parents or other family members who, while violating the law, did not pose the most imminent life-threatening danger.
It's inherently difficult to measure the true impact in stranger cases, isn't it? I mean, you can't run a control group. You can't know what would have happened if no alert had been issued.
That is the central analytical constraint. However, Griffin and Miller argue that in the worst abduction scenarios, the perpetrator's intent usually guarantees that anything public officials do will be too slow. Success in the most menacing cases requires this near-perfect synchronization.
A perfect storm.
It is. Rapid discovery, rapid alert issuance before the critical 3-hour window, and the immediate fortuitous sighting by a citizen who is paying attention and calls the police. That perfect storm is, unfortunately, very rare.
This leads to their most critical and perhaps most challenging conclusion, which they label crime control theater. Can you elaborate on what they mean by that phrase?
It's a very pointed critique. They argue that Amber Alert creates the appearance but not the fact of crime control. In their view, it's a socially constructed solution to the rare but intractable crime of child abduction murder.
So it makes us feel like we're doing something.
It allows society and political leaders to feel proactive and mobilized against an otherwise terrifyingly random and uncontrollable threat. It provides a highly visible public response that reassures the public and addresses moral panic, even if, statistically, its effectiveness is strongest in cases where the child was likely to be recovered safely anyway.
That dynamic highlights the massive dilemma law enforcement faces. The conflict between the need for rapid recovery and the necessity of maintaining strict issuance criteria. If a tragedy occurs and an alert was withheld, like the initial situation in the Victoria Stafford case, law enforcement faces immediate and severe public backlash.
Regardless of the statistical evidence on effectiveness, yes.
And the academic concerns about the high percentage of alerts that don't meet the strict criteria translate directly into the real-world operational problem of desensitization.
Right. If 70% of alerts are not for high-risk stranger abductions, advocates worry that the public will slowly begin to tune out the alarms.
This concern was dramatically realized during the timing controversy. In July 2013, a New York alert was sent through the WEA system at 4 a.m.
That incident was a landmark moment for public frustration. Sending a blaring, non-deactivatable alarm at that hour, regardless of the urgency, raised significant concerns that many cell phone users would simply choose to disable all WEA alerts.
Which would be dangerous for other emergencies.
Absolutely. Potentially ignoring flash flood warnings or civil defense warnings. The cost of one poorly timed alert could be the integrity of the entire emergency notification system.
We saw similar frustration recently in Texas with the Blue Alert, the spin-off for injured police officers, sent at 4:50 a.m. in 2024.
That was a textbook example of the range and timing issue. It was sent to phones across the entire state, covering areas hundreds of miles away. That alert prompted thousands of complaints to the FCC.
Because people didn't feel it was relevant to them.
The public simply didn't believe they were expected to wake up in the middle of the night to search for a suspect 8 hours away. This public reaction directly reinforces the findings of Griffin and Miller regarding the limits of mass mobilization when the information isn't geographically relevant or urgent for most recipients.
Beyond the noise and the inconvenience, we'll also have to consider the safety risks caused by the alerts themselves, specifically the traffic effects.
Yes. The alerts displayed on electronic highway signs are effective, but they pose a safety paradox. The Federal Highway Administration has specifically instructed states to use these signs sparingly.
Why?
They cite safety concerns from drivers being distracted while trying to read the scrolling text at highway speeds and the negative impacts of traffic congestion caused by the sudden slowdown.
And the sources provide a concrete example of this trade-off. An alert in Los Angeles in October 2002 that was displayed on freeway signs caused significant, measurable traffic congestion.
As a direct result, the California Highway Patrol elected not to display the alerts during rush hour, prioritizing commuter safety and traffic flow over immediate distribution on those specific signs. It shows the cost-benefit analysis for public safety is highly dynamic.
And finally, we have to discuss the completely unforeseen and highly disturbing consequence reported regarding health effects.
This is a stark warning about integrating emergency systems with consumer technology. There's the disturbing case of the family who sued Apple in 2020. They claimed their 12-year-old child suffered a ruptured eardrum and inner ear damage, resulting in permanent hearing loss and tinnitus.
And the mechanism here is key. They claim this occurred when an Amber Alert was pushed through his AirPods Pro at an ear-shattering volume, even though his Netflix volume had been set low.
Exactly. This happens because the WEA system treats the alert as a mandatory system-level notification, bypassing user-set volume controls for media playback. It defaults to maximum loudness to ensure it can wake a sleeping person. When that maximum volume is channeled directly into the ear via high-fidelity devices like AirPods, the potential for acoustic trauma is very real.
A serious design flaw.
A very serious one in the interface between emergency systems and modern audio equipment.
The visibility and success of the Amber Alert system, despite its controversies, have undeniably inspired similar programs for other vulnerable populations. This shows how the framework can be adapted and specialized.
The WEA infrastructure proved so robust that it created a platform for alerts beyond child abductions. California, in particular, has been a policy leader in creating specialized alerts for vulnerable groups historically underserved by the standard AMBER criteria.
The earliest and most widespread spin-off is the Silver Alert, created in California in 2012 for missing elderly people, particularly those with Alzheimer's or dementia.
And following that model, California has continued to specialize. In 2022, they added the Feather Alert for missing Indigenous people.
This was a direct response to data showing that Indigenous people, especially women, are disproportionately affected by missing persons cases.
And they often don't receive the same media or investigative attention as other groups.
And most recently, in 2023, they introduced the Ebony Alert for missing Black children and young women. This is a crucial policy development built entirely on the premise that the standard one-size-fits-all AMBER criteria sometimes fail to serve all communities equally.
Supporters of the Ebony Alert explicitly argue that this specialized alert will dedicate crucial, standardized resources to missing Black youths who may not receive sufficient attention through the standard criteria, which often focuses heavily on stranger abductions. It acknowledges that the public and media engagement that define AMBER Alert success are not always applied consistently across demographic lines.
Texas, meanwhile, pioneered a different type of alert, the Blue Alert, implemented since 2008 for suspected cases involving serious injury or death to a police officer.
The Blue Alert system, as we discussed with the 4:50 a.m. incident, really illustrates the tension between broad utility and public patience. While important for law enforcement safety, the wide geographic range and occasional intrusive timing of those alerts highlights the political difficulty of adapting a child recovery system for a law enforcement manhunt.
The cultural significance of the Amber Alert system is evident in its commemoration and media representation. It moved from just a law enforcement tool to a recognized cultural symbol of national vigilance.
That's underscored by the U.S. Postal Service, issuing a special 39-cent postage stamp in May 2006 commemorating Amber Alerts. The stamp, featuring a drawing of a reunited mother and child with the text "Amber Alert Saves Missing Children," effectively cemented the system's place in the national narrative as a success story.
The story of Amber Hagerman has also been brought to media, ensuring the public never forgets the system's origin. In 2006, a TV movie titled Amber's Story was broadcast on Lifetime.
And significantly, there was a deliberate effort to leverage media to further the ongoing investigation. A comic book titled Amber Hagerman Deserves Justice A Night Owl story was published in 2009, geared toward a young audience, but specifically created to recount Amber's story and promote the reopened investigation into her murder. It turned the system's origin into a renewed call for tips and for justice.
So as we synthesize the overall impact, what is the conclusion regarding the legacy of this massive public safety mechanism?
The system's legacy is complex. While it faces valid and serious criticism regarding criteria, adherence, and the crime control theater designation, especially in the highest risk stranger cases, the system has undeniably mobilized public engagement in emergency response in a way few other civil emergency systems have achieved globally. It set a global standard.
A global standard for rapid, geo-targeted civilian mobilization.
Exactly. And the central tension that defines this system remains the necessity of balancing urgency, the need to save a life within that critical 3-hour window with precision, which is required to maintain public trust and avoid the desensitization that could ultimately render the entire network useless when a true high-risk emergency occurs.
We've covered the heart-wrenching origin, the rapid global adaptation, the rigorous and sometimes ignored criteria, and the resulting public debates on its true effectiveness and unexpected side effects, from traffic jams to the potential for physical harm from the alarm volume itself.
The complexity of the Amber Alert system demonstrates the profound challenges inherent in leveraging mass communication for emergency response. The source material highlights that it functions successfully as a massive social and political achievement, providing comfort and a feeling of action against an intractable threat, even while its measurable success in the specific type of crime it was founded upon remains, analytically debatable.
As we draw this exploration to a close, consider this final thought for your own reflection. The future of these alerts seems to be moving toward greater specialization. If systems like the Ebony Alert and the Feather Alert continue to grow, catering to specific communities often underserved by initial criteria, does this suggest a permanent shift toward hyper-localized, specialized alert systems for all vulnerable groups, ultimately moving away from a single, unified, nationwide standard?
It's a crucial question.
It is a crucial question for policymakers and the public to consider as these essential public safety systems continue to evolve. Thanks for listening.